Okay, so here I am with the art of personal sustainability. And my whole premise is on restoring the world with the most sustainable resource, you. So we often hear about this concept of personal responsibility, which I don't deny, but I believe we can couple it with the art of personal sustainability. There's a lot of talk about the word sustainability and what it means in our economy and our environment, but very little talk is done around personal sustainability and how we ourselves can govern our own energy and then radiate that out into the world. And so that's something that I want to present a small little concept on, and I like to use this model as a really fun just exercise and way to kind of see how you as an individual are a greater part of the whole, and how we can shift just tiny little shifts of awareness and ideas about ourselves, and how that can not only make us a better person, but how we can be more effective in our community, how we can apply ourselves more in our communities, and ultimately it's living a more purposeful life. And also, this is important for anyone taking up a massage practice or learning to give and receive massage. So if you're taking my programs at home, it's always important to ask yourself, is this sustainable? The way that I'm giving a massage, is this physically sustainable? Am I giving too much energy out? Or am I not giving enough energy out? Maybe you're holding back in ways that aren't healthy for you. And so it's this concept of sustainability is always something that's in my mind when I used to take on new clients, or if I'm working in a big group. How do I give in a way that's sustainable? And what am I taking in a sustainable way? Because we're creating ongoing relationships, and these conversations, they keep happening, and its relationships are eternal, so we're kind of working in an infinity loop. And it's important to understand how to give and receive in a way that's harmonious and that feels good for both people, and that also allows for growth. And it's defining these different aspects of a tree, I think, is a beautiful way to look at how us as an individual and the people we're working on and the environment and the community that we're in, how it's all kind of collective and the oneness of all of it. So taking this idea of a forest and trees, which has recently been scientifically proven as the best way to restore our habitat, our environment, climate change. So this is a quick little mock-up of what I like to call the me tree. And I personally, I drew this out for myself. It's kind of an exercise I did for myself, and I realized the value of it, and how it can just, it's a really simple concept, but there's so many layers and there's so many ways to apply this to how we're living in our own life, in our own community, and our own environment. So often we're disconnected and we're only looking at ourselves, or only, there's people who have, and I can be one of them, environmental anxiety, where, you don't want to drive, or you don't want to use plastic because you're so scared that of the effect on the planet. And ultimately, there's a lot of ways to create this symbiosis. So we're going to come back to this image, but here's just a little snapshot of it so you kind of know what I'm talking about. So, yes, trees are in the lead, but I want us to start with us first because we can plant as many trees as we possibly can. But if we don't personally change our habits, or enough of us at an individual level, not only with the way we're treating the environment, but the way we're treating ourselves and the way we're just governing our own life systems and our own life force. So, as trees become the leading tool for combating climate change and habitat restoration, we have to start with ourselves. And it will not only make the process of restoration more sustainable, we can actually do it simultaneously. So we don't have to do, all this godforsaken work on ourselves for years and then go plant trees. We can create active solutions as we're working on ourselves at the same time. And actually that just allows more momentum for change at a really rapid place, or a really rapid pace and place. And back to this idea of symbiosis, which is, by definition, it's an interaction between two different organisms living in a close physical association, typically to the advantage of both. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship between different people or different groups, or we can look at this as human to human, or we can look at this as human to forest, nature, environment. There's a lot of different ways to look at this, and this is a concept that is, really abstract, but it's also can be really scientific. So defining sustainability on a personal level, sustainability became a big old buzzword a couple years ago, at least here on the West Coast, and it's often used in corporate environments or places, grocery stores or big firms who want to use this quote unquote green concept of sustainability. And so we've sort of lost the meaning, I think, a little bit. The dictionary definition is the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. It also means the avoidance of depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. So if we take sustainability out of the corporate light and we come down to just a personal level, you, yourself, and becoming aware of our ability to maintain ourself and our energy at a certain rate or a certain level. And a lot of times I don't even think we think about this. Maybe if you're an athlete or a marathon runner, you hyper focus on it because you have to figure out how to get to the finish line in the time that you want, and how do you budget your energy and how do you budget your momentum. And not only in terms of physical force is that good to think about, but we don't want to deplete ourselves and our natural resources to, recuperate. And if us as individuals are unhealthy, it's really unrealistic to think that our environment is going to be healthy also. And if we don't understand our circumvent force and how we can maintain a personal ecology of balance, how if our climate was thriving, why does it matter if we're going to be sick or we're not going to be feeling well? So my personal definition is how to give and receive in a way that feels good and creates restoration and harmony. And this can be applied human to human, human to environment. I think that's sort of a general way of looking at exchange, the type of exchange that I want. And I really encourage everyone to kind of come up with a definition that works for you, that rings true for you, and finding places or areas in your life where you might feel depleted. And it's important to start there first, because that is a hole, somewhere where we're leaking our energy and our natural resources of, happiness and caretaking, and just, the body is a self-healing mechanism. So if you are avoiding that self-healing, or maybe you're depleted in ways that you don't recognize, I think it's important to patch that up and really spend time thinking about that and how you can become a sustainable unit in your personal ecosystem. And coming back to what are our natural human resources. So instead of grasping and searching for things outside of ourselves to fix the problem, let's just get real basic and understand that we came here with a body, a physical body, a brain, our organ systems, and a mind. I like to separate a brain and mind because a mind has mental formations, ideas. We have our sensory systems, eyes, ears, nose, our intuition plus, and our inspiration, our energy, and our ability to interact. So using those resources, and some of us might have more, we definitely have more ability or agility in one thing more than another. And so on that individual level, it's important to understand that you're unique. Our own makeup is unique to every single person. And so understanding those strengths and those areas that you might feel abundant, understand how that can affect the whole, whether you're aware of it or not. It's something that is good to research and just take good self-inquiry of, wow, like I have a really quick and powerful mind. I see solutions to problems that other people don't. Or, you could just have an abundance of energy. Maybe you're a doer and you really like to organize events and you want to interact with people. And, there's so many possibilities. And how we choose to be affects the entire system. So it's not selfish and it's not wrong to think about our ego and the things that we're really good at, because that's your natural human resource. You are gifted with something, and maybe not gifted with something that you want to work towards, but you have to start where you are and your foundation, and really become like a pillar of strength in how you can anchor yourself on the planet, just like a tree, and understand, what are those strengths, those undeniable strengths that you possess that are really an asset to the system you're a part of. Okay, so now we're back at the me tree. So if you look at this illustration, I have it, and this is also downloadable for you. If you click on the link, you can download this as a PDF document. And so if you want to play with this a little bit more and write this down for yourself, which I strongly recommend, this is an exercise I play with a lot, actually. If it's at a pivot point in my life, or something that I want to continue to grow, or something where I'm feeling stuck, I'll come back to this because before we start any kind of implement anything new in our life, whether it's a house or a home or a business or any kind of new endeavor, we have to ask ourselves, is this sustainable? Not only on the planet and our environment, which definitely we should be thinking about, but is this sustainable within you? And this is just a really fun little illustration that I put together that represents sort of all these parts of a tree and how we can apply these to our own thought processes, these aspects of ourselves. Okay, so here we go into a little bit more detail. And again, this is all on the PDF if you want to download, and then there'll be spaces for you to write in your own answers. So my shadow, so that's the soil below the surface. So kind of those little dark crevices that maybe we don't want to look at. It's actually, the soil is what is feeding a tree. It's the substrate. So it's important to look at our shadow, because these areas that we might not be thinking about are actually really ruling our decisions and the actions that we take. So this could be any kind of judgments you have about yourself, others, the social structure you're in. They could be your fears, fear of vulnerability, or fear of being seen, or fear of connection. They can be any lies that you tell yourself or someone else. You might consistently be, lying about something or keeping something secret, and actually, that's just going to keep recirculating in your life. And this can also be addictions. Any kind of addiction you have can really be a greater part of these other aspects of why we're doing things. And it's important not to be scared of the dark, because it is a really important thing to look at. And I think that is a foundational thing that we should start at. So take some time and really think about maybe the things you hide from other people, or the things that are constantly in your brain that make you feel afraid, or make you kind of, when you think about it, you sort of steer the other direction. This can be like self-doubt, so many things. The next step up, I am calling my nourishment. So this is the roots of the tree. They filter life. It's the basic needs of the tree. It's how you feel nourished. Like, how are you receiving from your environment so that you can grow tall and strong? So for me, this is play. I have to have a lot of play. I really need to be stimulated a lot. I have a really active imagination and brain, and so play and fun and really healthy food and friendship, those are all things that I feel nourished by, that I really need. And then it can just be our basic needs that often we do sort of look over and we live without. And, that comes down to housing or basic income, or partnership is, a basic need for a lot of people. And just really looking at places in your life that nourish you, or maybe right now you need more of. And moving on to my growth, this is the trunk, or sort of that pillar of stability. These can be your practices, sports, hobbies, meditation. It can be travel, anything that makes you feel like that tests your stability, or allows you to become stronger. So it doesn't necessarily mean doing an activity you're good at all the time, but something that can allow for more growth, for you to become more stable. And then next up we have my strength, which I'm calling the branches. And this is sort of how you extend and leverage your own energy. So if you look at the branches of a tree, they're coming from the trunk. They're coming from that pillar of stability of where you're really grounding yourself. And then they hold all of this fruit, and they support other forms of life. The squirrels, the birds that land on the branches, the fruit that grows from the tree, the leaves, they sort of are the strength for everything. And it's how you give life and what you're taking from life. So sort of like our arms, we give and we take, and we use our arms to leverage ourselves and to support others. They help us create our businesses. They can create objects and products and solutions. And I also group this in with communication, because branches as well as roots. I mean, they communicate an expression, or our touch is an expression, and branches can be the expression of the tree, of how it's growing, the direction that it's taking. And then off of the branches come the leaves, and I'm calling this my style or just my vibe, sort of like the ego self, and this actually changes. It changes with the seasons. So the leaves are, they're green and bright and full in summer, and then they turn a different color come fall, and then they fall off and they become dormant in the wintertime. And then when spring comes around, they're tiny and small, and they're gathering all that strength from the nourishment, from the roots, from how big the trunk has grown, and where the branches are going. And so this is kind of all constantly changing, and this is sort of like the ego self. And sometimes we change our hair color, our hairstyle, or we want to wear different clothes, and sometimes we want to speak different languages. We want to be in different places, and then in those different places we listen to different music, and we take up different hobbies. And all of this is sort of just the external self, but it's important to understanding the species of the tree. How our leaves look determines, sort of who we are, in a sense. So the leaf structure of a tree is one of the most defining and obvious aspects of what kind of tree that is. So I like to relate this as sort of a metaphor to the ego self. And next to the leaves, we have the fruits, or the fruit of our labor, which is our natural gifts, or anything that we're putting our energy towards through the year or years. They can be long-term investments, because a tree doesn't have fruit all the time. It's once a year, or sometimes it's once every couple years. And it's dependent on the environment, the weather, where you put yourself, who you're hanging out with. And so these fruits and gifts, I wrote down empathy, talking, listening, humor. Are you good with money? Are you good at creating a home? Are you good at managing a home or managing a business? These are all gifts, and they're fruits that were given to us, and we can also take that and make new things. So after that, I like to call this our higher self. And so if you look at the illustration, there's a little bird coming off one of the branches, and this is I relate the bird to the higher self. So the ability to be, or sort of see the outside or observer perspective of your own life. Birds come and go from trees, and they're sort of like, they're the houses for trees, and they're having this aerial overview perspective. And it's good to look at that. We need to look at ourselves from a different vantage point than just being so focused on who we are and what we're doing. It's good to see, well, how am I relating, or what do I look like? Sort of like looking at yourself in the mirror. So I notice that I am, fill in the blank, defensive, or I'm lazy, or I'm untruthful, or I'm avoidant of certain things, or I'm emotionally reckless, I'm emotionally unstable, I haven't taken time to really figure out where I'm at. Or this can also be, I see what others need. Our higher self we can be looking at the group from a different vantage point, and we see that, oh, this person needs compassion, and you could be really angry at this person, but this is, what's needed in the moment is compassion. Or this person just needs a friend, they need help, they need someone who's strong for them. And it's just being able to see that from a higher vantage point. And then my community, which is the forest or the other forms of life that are on the tree, the relationships that are formed in a forest around trees, the mushrooms, the other shrubs, the squirrels, the birds, the bees, the insects. And this is important because we need to ask ourselves, who do we surround ourselves with, and who do we let into our life? It's really, really true that, the top 3 people you surround yourself with that's the biggest influence on you, and that's who you're modeling yourself after. That's the dominant energy that's going to prevail, and that's kind of who you're becoming. So that's a good thing to look at. I think all of these things, they exist independently, and some are more clear than others, and some are gonna be the same for a long time, and others are changing, and depending on what's going on in our life, if we're moving or if we're changing something, I think this is a really good reference point to ask ourselves, is this personally sustainable? Is this sustainable to myself, to my family? And when we answer these questions, we can really see how we can be of greater value to not only our personal evolution, but to the community around us, and how we can apply ourselves and become a more sustainable whole and a sustainable self.